in record mode. All right. Welcome back, Baron. And congratulations.
Thank you. Cheers.
All right. So obviously we've had some pretty big announcements come out for the 3.27 league announcements. So thoughts? Where are we at?
Overall, good. This is always how I feel when a new PoE1 league comes out. It's got that kind of baseline level of I'm excited for it as long as they don't completely shit the bed, which they haven't, in my opinion. Um, and I think a lot of the changes that they're making are exciting to me. Um, I watched some of the Q&A afterwards with Ziggy D, and I could see in both Mark and Jonathan how they wanted to push some of the end game stuff a little further, and they just didn't have the time and resources, and which I totally get. But I'm excited to see where they continue to push the end game. But in terms of a lot of the changes that they introduced, I think are positive. How about you?
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I've obviously seen and heard comments from people that are saying not enough, not enough, but you know, we're sort of waiting for more patch changes during the week as well. So they've announced they're going to be adjusting further stuff, but then on top of that, you really look at it and it's like huge QOL, async trade, remaster
Yeah,
of
I mean,
breach,
God,
like that's enormous, like in its own, unto its own right.
if
Uh,
if you gave me nothing other than the Bloodline Ascendancies and Asynchronous trade, that would be it. I would come back happily for that.
yeah,
And the fact that we've got a whole league on top of that, please.
I get to do a Crystal King build now. Like I've always wanted to do that. I
I
get to do it.
know
I was like, we don't even
there
know what it
will
is.
be there will be a ward ascendancy with Olroth. It's got to be ward
One
related. I'm going to figure out something to
100%.
do with it.
The ultimate ward loop setup, the immortal ward loop.
Exactly.
Yep.
I can pair it with any ascendancy I want. There's something there.
It's got me. I just like the Breach content, man. Like, we all looked
Mm.
at Breach. Like, Breach, arguably, of all the leagues, has been was one of the most popular and I guess turning point leagues in the game where they really like up the ante on the content originally. And so, like, now we're getting this enormous, like the grafts. I really want the grafts to
hmm
go core. They, take. I don't even care about the mercs anymore. I can live without the mercs. I want the grafts. The grafts look
Tell
sick.
me about what do you like? What excites you about that?
It's just like additional power. It's like the amount of stuff that potentially you could get from those graphs with the individual skill trigger, like the auto trigger skills and stuff like that, that will go off. Like I think there was one that has like defense triggers and all sorts of stuff like that from a
hmm
like from someone who plays defensive builds. Like the options with that to supplement your build, increase your damage, and or stack more defense is insane. Like every league starter that, for example, in the curation put today, every league starter that put in now more powerful automatically. It didn't get nerfed
Yep.
and more powerful automatically because you're going to get those grafts and any other like mods that you get from those breach arms. It's going to be nuts. But yeah, that's where my headspace is right now. I'm pretty happy with it.
It's interesting how they talked a little bit about this. I can't remember. It must have been in the Q&A where they talked about how the scope of what a league is to them has expanded. So like we talk about how like this is like a limited league because they're focusing on PoE2 or whatever. You hear people saying that. Like, but look back at Breach 2.0 versus original Breach, which was just monsters in circle, and now it's there's this whole like this
Skullfire.
progress bar mechanic. It's got all this crafting and materials associated with it, and then even Breach at the time was a step up, like you said, compared to like Onslaught League, which is it was just the most minimal possible addition to the game, and they've expanded over and over again the concept of what a league even is. And so now you're getting this whole expansion with player power that replaces the mercenaries to some degree. We don't know exactly how much, but in the lore,
Mm.
there was no lore. I mean, you had what, like a couple of the items had flavor text for the breach items, and now you've got this whole thing of how it's going to lead into the breach that we know in PoE2, and it's kind of cool.
Oh yeah, I'm hoping that it gives birth to the next obvious league that makes sense to remaster, which is Delve. And like if it's sort of like when you think about it, it makes sense, right? So they're remastering. I think there's more to this conversation than they've just like decided to do a Breach 2.0. I think it's actually they redesigned a lot of the mechanics because they're intending to put a lot of that because
Yes.
they've put it in the game now. They got to put it in PoE 2. So basically, they're going to go, well, we've designed all the assets. Let's put it in PoE 2 and call it like an extension of that league in PoE 2. Um,
You could see, I mean, you could see they weren't even really trying to hide it when they were talking about Trial of the Ancestors, how they were saying, yeah, obviously they want to rebalance it before they put it back into PoE1 because they're right. Like you got to the point where it was solved. You were just cheesing it with the like void sphere, perfect
yeah,
block, perfect
yeah,
evasion build. I did it and it was fun. I admit it. Like I had fun doing it. The rewards were great, but I agree with them. You know, you kind of don't want it to be solved when you put it back in.
yeah.
But the fact that they're putting it in PoE2, they both games get to benefit because once they balance it to get it in PoE2, they have an idea of kind of like, okay, this is what we need to do to reintroduce it in PoE1. So all good.
Yeah, exactly. And like I know they said like they didn't want to do too many remaster leagues, but I don't think it's a bad thing to do remaster leagues. Like some people I saw in comments and whatnot were like, "Oh, here we go. They're just going to remake the same old crap." But basically they're not because like it's a whole like
Not at all.
Breach 2.0 is totally different to Breach 1. Like, we didn't have the tree.
They had to you listen to how they talk about it. The tree. I mean, like they had to actively keep in the back of their mind while they were designing this content. All right, guys, don't forget, at its core, Breach still needs to be Breach. Kill monsters in circle, which I totally agree with. But like the fact that they even had to keep that in the back of their minds because they were expanding so much, like it is insane to me to say that this is just Breach with like a new skin on it or whatever. That's not the case at all.
But if you read more into it, right? So in PoE 2, they were looking for a way to deal with breach where like they were going to go, oh, we're going to add in more different types of breaches and stuff like that. But then I think they looked at it and they were like, well, no, we can't really do that because we're going to add more content down the future. And that's why they created the whole Zest scenario. And like now the Hiveborn, because they're combining a lot of that bloat into one big mega resource thing. So that simplifies the amount of content and things like that. Makes it more complicated at the same time around what it was previously and sort of diversifies it a little bit. But it's not like here's like all the different colors of breaches and all the whatever, and you got to go into this spec to get this. And like it does simplify some of that and allows for like furtherment of that content unto its own right. But then it allows that it doesn't cloud the game up or bloat the game up unnecessarily. It's creating more complex, more layered individual content as opposed to just like here's 20 different like rows that you could potentially go in with different colors, basically the same bosses and same everything else. I think it's a smart way to do smart way to deliver content moving forwards because PoE 2 is going to get very bloated very quickly if they just port.
Yep.
Yep.
So that's overall impressions. Should we discuss the nerfs? I mean, we knew some were coming. They did. What do you think? Were these nerfs deserved? Not deserved? Could even more have been done? Where you at?
Um, the ones that I see like straight away were like VFOS, Bama got hit pretty hard. And
Deleted.
yeah, exactly. It's just pretty much non-existent now. Outside of that, like what other nerfs did you see in the patch notes? I just can't think of them on the top of my head.
Well, Trickster definitely
Oh
took a
yeah.
hit. Trickster took a hit. I think it's probably not as dead as people will treat it as. I think that between seeing that it's not as powerful as it was, and like everybody and their brother has played some variety of Trickster between Necropolis League and now, like you've probably played an ES track stacking Trickster at some point. So like I think people are going to be happy enough to let that ascendancy pass and like just try something else. So I think Trickster won't see as much play, but the nerfs aren't as super aggressive. I think they're probably warranted. Trickster was very overplayed. I saw some people worried about the Elementalist Golem nerf, and like I gotta say, that one was pretty deserved. Like as somebody who made an Elementalist build, made guides and content for it, like yeah, man, it was pretty busted. And the nerf that they did is honestly not even that bad. So like this is what I just want people to keep in mind. The Leech of the Primordial was taken from 100% increased golem effect down to 50% increased golem effect. And what I don't want people to think about that is like, oh, they cut the power of the golems in half. They sure as hell did not. So keep in mind, the golem skill gems themselves were changed at the same time that Liege of the Primordial was. They were also granted a bunch of innate, inherent power that was just being boosted up by the ascendancy node,
Mm.
and the baseline golem power remains the same. Additionally, 100% increased effect on that. That wasn't the only source of increased effect. You get 20 at least from quality. You're getting 80 from the skill tree with just 3 skill points. And then if you invest into Primordial Bond, you get even more. So this isn't cutting their power in half, it's cutting it by like 20% or something like that. And they're still going to be really, really good. So I think that's totally warranted. And Elementalist is probably still going to be really strong. So
They hit it back in the day. That you remember when, like, was it fire arrow or whatever it was a thing on the Elementalist, when you could then, when they added Liege of the Primordial, it got totally abused originally. So this is them just trying to find some sort of strike of balance later down the track.
yeah.
And I don't see a huge issue with it, like you said. The like the other things like VFOS, like the biggest issue with VFOS last league is like there's always like this super hype build that makes its way in, and it's a good build. Like it was a good, really good build. The problem with it though is like everyone played it and it drove the build cost up at the end of the day, like it always happens with metas. But there was like a bottom out point after like week 2 or whatnot when people realized you really just couldn't push it anymore because it just has this ceiling that it just cannot get past. And the ceiling's pretty big. But like if you're looking at a build that has like diversification and speciality and things like that, it just doesn't meet that bar. And so a lot of people ended up respecing out of it. Either it became boring to play or it just wasn't strong enough at that very top end compared to other builds. So the nerf sort of makes sense too. Like auto tracking, slam hits is probably a little bit overpowered because that you sit
Right,
in a
right.
room, just hold one button down. I can see why GG's like, yeah, we're gonna get rid of that. Um,
And keep in mind, they kept Earth Shatter in place, which can kind of slot into the same build archetype, right?
uh,
And you had some content on that recently, didn't you?
I did a leveling guide for it. Earthshard is just totally ridiculous. I'm hoping
And
that
it just doesn't have that auto tracking, but
no,
it's still
still
good.
still really strong. Huge AoE, big damage, and you can tank up and you can play it on Slayer or Jug, or you could probably even play it on Assassin somehow. But yeah, it just seems like the weirdest one to me is like Bama. I don't fully understand why they hit Bama. Maybe you do, but yeah, I'm not sure about
Not
that.
really. I mean, like Bama always came up like whenever you would talk like, all right, what should I league start? What's reliable? Like it had been reliable for a while, but I didn't get the impression that it was overplayed. I don't know. Yeah, like it doesn't. It's no skin off my nose. Like it.
Yeah,
I wasn't gonna league start Bama, but it is interesting. I don't. Yeah.
yeah,
It to me, it wasn't breaking the game.
but minions, that's where the money is. That I don't I don't oh sorry, I don't think people understand what always hits actually means for minions.
Mhm.
But I don't know if
No
you
longer having to invest into accuracy for minions is great. That's several skill points saved. Um, Spectres have been changed. We don't know the full details on that yet, but specters now seem to reserve mana but are permanent. Like your specters cannot be removed, which is great news for anybody like me who had run. I've run several builds with the ritual specters or previously the affliction wildwood specters. There's some really fun stuff you can do with that, like the perfect runic skeletons I've run the guys who look like El Hesman. What are they called? The perfect serpent warriors, I think
yeah.
they're called. They're a great poison build. There's a lot of fun options in there, and it was always for me my like end of league goofing around project because you would inevitably have to throw divines at the problem of your specters randomly getting popped. And now you don't have to worry about that. You could make that as a legitimate, maybe even a league starter build. So it's exciting.
Remember, AG doesn't die anymore either. You can resummon
I
AG.
know.
So
That's so hype. I love
now
that.
the cost of the build just like went. Whew, you're not going to lose your Kingmaker or your Crown of the Tyrant anymore. So now you can just go crazy. Like
Yep.
that's the, and then coupled with, like you said, no accuracy. So melee specters like go ham on the stupidest melee. Like you can get those like shield dudes out of like delve in the primeval nodes and stuff like that, and muck around with like having a shield
Yeah.
warrior. Yeah, they got the tankiest. I think they're the tankiest specter in the game, or tankiest and one of the tankiest enemies in the game or monsters. But I really want them to add Frostball Inspectors back into the game. The ones that had like the huge cannon projectiles, you just like blow the whole screen up as you walk through them.
Where'd you get those guys?
They were in Crucible, so you can't get them anymore.
That's right. Okay.
They were,
Forgot about that.
yeah, they were pretty hectic. But slave, I was like the slavers from, was it Act 5?
F5, I think it's Act 5.
Yeah,
Yeah, Slave Pen.
they were pretty good too. But yeah, but it's
I
but
remember those.
well, we've got all these breach monsters now, so potentially we could get some insane breach specters as well. So
Yeah, even as a utility specter, like for a while now, it what was it? It of Tull or whatever it is.
yeah,
There's one that had a like a cold aura that increased damage taken, stuff like that, and that was always good. But yeah, if they're gonna do all new monster models, the sky's the limit.
yeah.
So let's see. Kind of talked
So we got
nerfs. Is there any other? Oh, there's one other nerf that are like kind of a in between nerf and buff before we move on to buffs. Is like maybe a lateral. Is the Nebulis thing? Nebulis is big for my build, and
yeah,
for my build, this is a nerf, right? So there's this business of instead of scaling with cold and lightning, it now scales with cold, lightning, and fire, but to a lesser degree.
yeah,
And instead of providing individual bonuses to cold and lightning damage, which those scale through conversion, now it's going to be a generic elemental damage one, which even though POB makes it look like that generic elemental damage scales multiple times through each conversion step, you go, lightning to cold to fire.
yeah,
It's not. It's a little bit of a visual artifact in POB, and in fact, it only counts once. So in effect, this is for a build like mine that took advantage of conversion shenanigans. This will be a net nerf from like upwards of 600% increased damage
yeah,
down to 450% increase. So it's sizable, but we got to keep in mind they're also, number one, including this increased magnitude of implicit modifiers effect, which if you've got something like ignite steal damage faster, that completely makes up the loss in damage
yeah,
immediately. So like it's a lateral. Plus, this now that it scales with uh, the three elements and can apply to any elemental damage, so many more builds can use this scepter now. I think Chieftain is going to have a good time with this, at least some Chieftain builds. Uh, yeah,
Do you think
because you're already scaling your max resistances to the moon with the Chieftain anyway. So,
do you think replica Nebulous is more workable now?
so
Got
this is the one.
150%.
Replica Nebula is the one that scales with missing fire, lightning, or cold, and it scales very high. But I think really only lightning is the one that you would maybe you'd be incentivized to have a lower resistance
Yeah.
for like Doriani stuff. I don't know what would your defensive mechanic be if you deliberately went with all your resistances were at like -60 or worse. Would you do like some transcendent stuff? Is that still an option?
Um, you could do everything converting to chaos damage somehow. Like
Yeah.
if you went chaos inoculation, and then you had like you think of like the Juggernaut Ascendancy, for example, as armor applies like chaos damage, and then yeah, you would do like, I don't think is it Zabiqua or
Zabakwa, I think. Yeah.
yeah, because then yeah, well you could go not chaos damage, and what was it called? Um, fourth vow. You could go fourth vow, and then stack armor,
Mhm.
and then convert your elemental damage to chaos damage taken, and then you would mitigate the impact of having negative res to a degree.
Divine Flesh is the one
That's it.
from Zabakwa that you're thinking of, and
Yeah,
that's the one that gives all damage taken bypasses energy shield, but 50% of elemental damage taken as chaos. So that's where the jug could come in. So like if you don't care about the energy shield, but you're still trying to take it as chaos damage, and it also raises your max chaos res by 5. There are other sources of max chaos res. So there's maybe something there. Although I would
you could.
characterize that as a very build around,
Yeah, you can use
like
Doria.
very niche. Like you're not gonna
Well,
go ahead.
you could use lightning coil. No, no, you can't use lightning coil because no, could you use lightning coil?
Doing well, that's taking Fizz as Ellie, which
Not
you
yeah,
wouldn't.
no,
That would be a negative synergy, I think.
no. It would be Doriani's prototype, because that would be
That's right.
applying armor over the top of lightning and then converting damage taken to lightning damage somehow, and then
Which you can do with the Watcher's Eye. When they nerfed the Fizz taken as Ellie, they turned it into Ellie taken as other Ellie. So you could think about that. I don't know how much of that you can stack. You'd have to play around with it in POB. So
gotcha.
yeah, I think the
Yep.
short answer is there's potential for replica Nebulis, but we'd have to play around with it to see what
Yeah,
that
but you
is.
have a really expensive build to get working as well. Like
Yeah, definitely.
the issue with that's like mana siphon calculates as like a sort of shock dot lightning dot scenario, and I know that rips through your build if you're negative lightning stacking.
It's ugly. That's why everybody was so excited to be able to offload Doriani's onto the Merc,
Yeah,
because Doriani's has always been a thing. You could always slap Doriani's on your build, but Mono Siphoner and the Crusader down ground degen, which obviously that was more of an issue back when Cyrus was like the pinnacle end game content, and you were
yeah,
fighting the Crusader all the damn time. You can get away and not see the Crusader in a whole league if you want now. But yeah, his ground degens were also very rippy for Doriani's. I did like probably a lightning strike or something Doriani's a while back. I don't
yeah.
remember.
Part of me actually wants to
Anyways.
Cyrus farm this league, to be honest with you. Anyway, I miss
Well,
it.
remember Cyrus. I love fighting Cyrus. I know that's a weird thing to say, but he was like my first big pinnacle boss that I actually overcame under my own power, and I'm curious to see what his bloodline stuff is going to be. He's now a part of the Feared. They took away Chayula and Atziri from the Feared, and they've got one of the new memory bosses as part of the Feared instead, and then Cyrus. That's going to be interesting. I kind of hope they've balanced that. I don't necessarily look forward to some of the shenanigans that Cyrus can get up to. So
Gonna
we'll
have
have to see.
corrupted blood pits all over the circle. Like the whole circle is corrupted blood pits, and you're just screwed.
Well, it's corrupted blood immunity has long been thought of as like once you get your build to a certain state, it basically becomes your mandatory upgrade. Like every
Yeah,
build should get corrupted blood immunity at some point.
corrupted jewel that gives you corrupted blood that you pay like 10 div or 20 div for or something like that. Oh man,
Either you pick one. Either you get a rare jewel that has nothing else going for it other than like corrupted blood and maybe one stat, or you super duper overpay for a rare jewel that has good stats and corrupted blood, or one of your uniques. Like you get a thread of hope that somebody corrupted and got lucky
yeah,
and did a, you know. Anyways, what
that's
about buffs? You got any buffs you're excited for?
obviously minion buffs are good, but the biggest one, or one of the ones that sticks out to me that's more legacy, is the cyclone buff. 20% at all levels is pretty
Yeah, that's
insane.
exciting. I
I
want to make it work. I do.
I think well, I featured a build today. There's a couple of builds going around. There's a Slayer and then there's a Gladiator that uses Devilish Dervish, and yeah, like it's workable. It always has been workable, but like yeah, it's now it's just like, oh well, here's this free buff, go have at. So I don't know. It's yeah, it's one of the ones that sticks out to me. I'm just having a quick look at the patch notes as well. Like obviously minions got buffed. Um, Chieftain sort of buffed, but not really.
A little bit.
Like
Which Winter Orb took a buff.
Vortex of projection got nerfed hard. The Vortex.
So yeah, so the patch note says now unable to explode from frostbolts that will explode from other casts of vortex of projection. What does this mean in practice?
I don't know. It means that you can't skill chain with it. So there
Interesting.
might have been a double dip scenario that caused it to interact the way that it did. I'm not entirely sure with that one though. It's a weird one.
Well, if
Oh,
that's the case, oh, go ahead.
oh no, Storm of Judgment and what was it? Flame of Judgment? Or like, do you know what
We
that's
we were
from?
gonna get there. We at series staff. We were gonna get there.
Oh,
I can make it work. I can make it
Mate,
work. I know
mate,
I can.
mate, I have already made it work. I've got a build guide for it. It's you use
Oh my god.
replica Shroud of the Lightness and you stack abyssal gems, and
Oh
you can
man.
make it even crazier with the Adorn and stack corrupted magic abyssal gems, and then use a darkness and throne with like 100% roll on it, and then basically then like do the stupid adorned like whatever judgment staff build that does insane levels of ignite. So you use it with ignite damage.
Right. So what is the abyssal mod that you're trying to scale to the moon
So
with all
it
that?
was two. It was two-handed weapon damage and fire dot. was the
Okay.
play, and then you scaled it. I think I got it to like 23 or 26 million ignite dot, which was the dot, almost a dot cap.
Love that.
Yep. And it's
Love
sort of,
that.
and the big thing there is like you could take the stave nodes and you could get max block.
I
Or
love the staves are underrated, man.
yeah,
Not just at series, but like I love playing around with. You get defense, you get global defenses, you get block, you can get global crit from staves. Like if you can find an excuse to use staves, they're fun.
I do your challenge. We do a build off and see who can come up with the best way to make that build work during the league.
Oh, you're gonna win. No, you're
I
gonna
don't,
win.
I don't,
You got a head start.
I don't know. I don't know. You may find a better way to do it. You can do it on hit. You can do it on hit crit. But ignite
Yeah.
was the best. And with the way that I guess with the breach graphs and stuff like that, there's some insane shit. But like the AoE on this is insane, and it's a flame blast, right? So the
Yep.
flame it's a flame blast, but it's an instant trigger flame blast. It just like booms.
Which is amazing.
So if you scale
Yep.
AoE, you can do full screen flame blast ignites with it. It is one stupidest, and you don't need to link the staff. You only need to have sockets on
Yep.
it. It's fantastic.
Of course, if you're building with the adorned and a bunch of corrupted jewels, you probably don't care about the expense of linking the staff at that point. But
It's an option. It doesn't work on Chieftain. I tried.
why is that?
It's because it needs the ignite ascendancy from the elementalist to prolif and ignite.
Interesting.
You probably could get it working with the chieftain, but the cost would be insane. The other thing you could do with it, actually thinking about this, could you do it cast when stun?
I always struggle with cast on. You probably could. It's not my preferred play style. I don't.
I don't know. I think you could do it with cast with stun though, and like you could do cast with stun at series staff. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it now because I think it could be dope.
Right.
All right. Moral of the story: at series rule, cast when stun could be dope. That's where I'm at.
That's about. Although no, it won't. Nope, it won't. Read it series rule. Look at it. Tell me if anything pops out at you.
Oh man, don't tell me that it can't be used with trigger gems.
It says no. That part's fine, but one of the lines on the staff is "it cannot be stunned."
Oh shit! That's bullshit.
Sorry, pal.
Oh no!
Sorry, man.
No! I ruined my night.
Oh man.
Oh, I gotta. Maybe there's
Right on there.
maybe there's a way to circumvent that. You never know. There might be.
I don't think so. Unless, let's see. Now, wait. Didn't we see that there are unique versions of these modifiers that like you can change certain mods on the item?
On the
What
breach.
if something about with the new breach thing? It's like the orbs of what are they called? Like befoulment or something like that.
Oh,
I forget what they're exactly called.
the foulborn.
Yeah. So they showed, I think, a unique item with a mod change. Now, granted, even if you could somehow, some way, get this relatively uncommon drop, that's going to be even more uncommon now that Atziri is not part of the feared anymore. So Atziri's drops are going to get more expensive because people aren't running her like crazy. If you could somehow get that one mod to be changed to something that is workable with the build, this would never work as like a widespread like, hey, everybody try this build, because it'd be insanely expensive.
Stop, Baron.
Listen, this is how I rule out my own bad build, so I gotta.
I'm doing this now. There is a needles.
I believe if there's a way to make it work, I believe that you will make it work. Whether even 10 other people will be able to do it, that's another question.
The Baba Yaga of getting this absolutely ridiculous item with that one particular modifier to get probably the most average feeling build ever to work in existence, just for the sake of it.
Just as we, all right, as we attempt to do this, both of us, I'll just read off the wiki page. It says, Atziri's rule cannot be supported by Spell Totem, Cast on Crit, Cast while channeling, Spell Cascade, or Cast when damage taken. Now, it does not include cast when
When
stunned in
stunned.
that list, but I would not be surprised if the only reason it was left out is because up until this moment there was never any way to be stunned with this staff. Like they didn't need to list that because it couldn't work. So if by chance, we don't even know if it's possible, but if by chance that line could be removed, you may even then find that it cannot be supported by cast when stunned. So just a little expectation setting. Just a little. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna try now. I'm gonna try. This is
Yep.
like chain hook totems all over again. We still do not have chain hook totems in this game. I could not be more disappointed.
Although they said that Chain Hook of Trarthus was you now throw more chains and has more maximum chains and deals 25% more damage at all levels. So maybe can Chain Hook of Trarthus be supported by totems? I don't know.
I don't think it can. Well, maybe. I don't think it could. I
Yeah.
would like if it could. Like it would be insane. It would be like the Void Sphere scenario all over again. Chain hook. This podcast has turned into can we prove if the build will work or not?
We're definitely in danger of rabbit holing. I'm just taking a quick look at it now, and then I promise we can move on. Uh,
It requires one hand mace scepter.
I don't see anything that specifically says. Although wait, no, it's a melee attack. There's no way of turning a melee attack into a totem anymore, is there? What
No,
would you
no,
do?
it would need to be a
You
slam
can do a
though.
slam. It would need to be a slam,
It's
and you'd
not a
need to use the
slam.
boots. So, too bad.
You know what I realized? Perforate is a slam skill. Technically, it could be used in a totem.
It is.
I didn't
Yeah,
realize
it can.
that.
Mhm.
Wasn't until I played it. I was like, oh shit, we could actually play perforate totems.
I saw you talking about perforate, and I've toyed around with that one as well. I think that's got potential. I would maybe do it as a champion or something, but yeah,
Hmm.
it's fun.
All right. Assassin's rework. Assassin's rework. We're back on track now. We okay.
Back on track.
All right. Thoughts?
So, I don't know what I expected. Like, if you told me they're going to rework Assassin, I don't know what I would have said they were going to do. It both changed more and less than I thought. I'll put it that way. Like, I definitely think it's got more potential now. The fact that they never thought to include the ruthless version of the all damage can poison mod, now that they have, that opens up a ton of possibilities. The Sandstorm Visage, except it can cast on crit if you want, modifier of where spells have the base crit from your weapon, has a lot of potential. Hell, if you're going to go with Perfect Agony, you could do both of those things in the same build, and they would have potential. Um, it still has the drawback of really nothing meaningful on defense. Yes, they improved the elusive effect on the one passive skill. Yes, there is now this physical damage recouped as life. Those aren't true, those aren't like defensive nodes the way that some other ascendancies have real defensive nodes. So, like, you'd still either need to resign yourself to being a glass cannon or really consider uh, very carefully how you will invest into defenses for the build. But I'm loving the idea of all the different new poison builds that people might be able to come up with this, like a tri-elemental blade vortex. Do you work in that new bloodlines ascendancy that gives you added chaos damage per life spent, yada yada? Like, there's just fun stuff that you can do now. What about you? What do you think?
I'm only gonna say one build. Poison stacking bone shatter.
I had that thought too. I had that thought
It
too.
would work.
I
It
assume you
would
would
work.
use the.
Yeah.
So I started playing it out, and the main problem that I had was pathing to the mace nodes, and like you try to do it without pathing to mace nodes, and just rely on the ascendancy recoup and do a bunch of right side of tree stuff. Uh, I didn't play that one out. I played it out
Could
trying to get to the left side, and you're light on points to
it
do it.
could path down to the left and you would have to take was it iron reflexes or whatever anyway. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you could
That's
path
kind of how I did it. I worked around the outside and took iron reflexes.
but a lot of builds didn't use the splash damage nodes anyway with Bone Shatter because it had built-in AoE anyway. So you could path down, like you could do it. I think you could. There's enough attack speed. You wouldn't necessarily need the mace nodes because you're looking for flat
Or
damage.
axe. I think a lot of Bone Shatter uses axe, don't they? Or
Uh,
do you have to do it with your
yeah, yeah,
mace?
no, it works with axes. Yeah, 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 yeah. A lot of times it's axes, but if you ran Bone Shatter, can you use it? You can't use it with You could.
Mace, scepter, axe, staff.
Yeah. You could do trauma stacking on pretty much anything and use claws.
Use it as a strike skill. So yeah, trauma stack. Actually, wait, no. Trauma does incur a requirement that you use certain weapon types. So let's see. Uh, Supported skills can only be used by axes, maces, scepters, staves. Sorry. Yeah, that
Son of
rules it out.
a bitch. That's so limited.
I'm really being the downer, aren't I? I'm sorry,
You're
man.
really Debbie Downing me today, man. Far out.
This is what you get when you podcast with somebody who sits around making terrible POB builds all the time.
Oh my
I know
god.
all of my stupid rule outs.
No, it's all right. Look, I think potentially it has the potential because there's enough biz damage nodes in that vicinity to be able to give you enough. And the other thing would be like you're stacking poison damage, and also Bone Shatter got a base damage buff too as well per stack of Bone
It
Shatter.
did.
So you'd run the stock
It
Bone
did.
Shatter. The only thing that you would need to really be concerned about would be attack speed, which you got tons of in that area.
You also need to consider how and whether you further scale your recoup and or life recovery rate. Life recovery rate is not as easy a stat to come by as life regeneration rate or
Mm.
life recovery rate from flasks. There is such thing as a generic life recovery rate that will scale the impact of recoup, but it is not common. There are not terribly many sources of it. And so, Juggernaut, when you play Bone Shatter as Juggernaut, you've got that incredible untiring built in
Mm.
uh, for your life recovery, where the more damage you deal to yourself, the more recovery you get. Assassin is kind of rate limited by that 40%, and you have to figure out like, what am I trying to do? Am I trying to get up to like 300% recoup or whatever? Or like, it's a good start, that recoup node, but I think you have to put more into it than Juggernaut does, where you basically just take the untiring node and you're done.
Well, the Defiance of Destiny would help, and that would mean you would need to run,
That's a good point.
yeah, complex trauma instead of base bone shatter, and that would mean you just need to keep below the cap of stacks so you don't reset, which means every time you hit with a poison, and that would scale up damage exponentially as well. So every time you hit it, yeah, that would work because you would every time you hit, you would proc another poison stack. So that would buff your damage up pretty significantly. So in that case, you could actually go endurance charge stacking, and you could get enough endurance charges on that side of the tree, or you could run was it Replica Brotherhood?
Replica Badge of the Brotherhood. So you get what, 4 to 5 from that?
Yeah, and you convert your total cap of instead of power charges, I think I think it's stacked based on power charges. You would then equal your power charges with your endurance charges instead,
So Replica Badge is you set your maximum endurance equal to max frenzy. Max frenzy is a lot easier to get on the assassin side of the tree. So
which
and then you
would
get max fortification per endurance.
which would give you speed, which would then mean you get high levels of endurance charges, which means you just need a generator, which would be on stun, so you'd use a stave, and you're laughing.
Nice.
Yep,
This has turned into a theory crafting podcast.
that's what it
Shall we
seems.
move on?
It seems to have turned that way. Anyway, moral of the story. That's where I'm sitting with Assassin. Basically, Bone Shatter.
I'm a
Something.
fan. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And other than that, like spellcrafting sort of configurations work really well with, for example, yeah, that mystical infusion, which is a storm visage node,
Oh yeah.
and then just
I'm a
the
fan.
the amount of straight up crit, like the combination of knife in the back and for the jugular. If you take both of those, well, you can. Yeah. Oh, you only take one of those.
You'd have to use Forbidden Flesh to take both of those.
Yeah, but
But
if you could,
Dreamcore put out a good video on this. I think it was Dreamcore, where he observed that what you can do with the Ascendant and Forbidden Flesh and Flame, where you can take more than one node from the same choice path, which you normally can't do.
Mm.
You can do with Forbidden Flesh Flame. So the implication is that likely you could take both of those with Forbidden Flesh Flame. Of course, that means they're probably going to be quite expensive, but yeah.
Yeah, but I
Then
think
you
we
get the 100% crit chance and multi, which is awesome.
I think we're going to see a lot of kinetic builds use it just for the Mystic Infusion, because like that huge amount of crit scale saves you so much, and power charge stacking just seems like
Yeah.
the logical choice. All right, asynchronous trade.
I mean, we've wanted it for it. I mean, this is it, man. This is one of the biggest changes that's ever been made to the game.
Yeah,
It's enormous. And we know that it's going to be great because we've had the advantage of already playing with it in Path of Exile 2. And it was great. It was everything that I had hoped for. Come back from overnight where I put something up for 5 div and it's gone. And
yeah.
there's 5 div sitting in my hand and I didn't have to do anything. I love it.
It's a delver's dream. So we sell on the market everything else, and then we sell on any other Crown of the Tyrants, All's Uprisings, you name it.
Listen, delve, heist, simulacrum, anything where you are outside of a normal map, and even regular mapping, it's a pain in the ass to have to portal back and trade, but especially for those things where you're locked in for a certain amount of time. How many times have you been delving and had to
Yep.
message somebody like, "Oh, I'm delving, I'll get back to you,"
Yeah,
and then like maybe they respond, maybe they don't.
they'll hit you with a 20 div trade right in the middle of a king fight, and you'll be like, man, I can make
Yeah.
another 50 div out of this fight if it drops right, but then I
Mhm.
got to go back and get 20 div and then redo it and reset. I think it's the single best thing that they've put in the game, and hands down just like totally changed the way that we play Path of Exile from a trading standpoint. But
So just devil's advocate, I happen to think that this is the case, but I want to explore both options. So like for a long time, grind to gear games, and whether this is driven by one or a few individual staff members, I do not know. But their philosophy on this was there needs to be trade friction. That introduce asynchronous trade like this, where you can just buy from somebody without interacting with them, it takes away a social component, they said, for many years, and it made trading too easy where the economy can start flowing to, flowing upward to certain individuals with too smooth of trade. What do you think about that? Was there any merit to that, or is this all upside now that we've
nah,
got asynchronous?
I think people are just over the interactions as an overall. Like as the community's changed over time, it's become toxic to a certain point when, yeah, every now and again you get someone that is just absolutely impossible to deal with, or
Mm.
just people ignoring trades or just being, the sometimes the pettiness of being one chaos out within a trade and someone being, I'm not trading because you're one chaos short, and then you got to go back and source it and all the rest of crap. I think where it's at is like a PoE by nature. If you want it to be a social game, it can be a social game. But I think one of the reasons why people do enjoy it is because there's no required need to have to log on and deal with people. You just sort of, it's a
Right.
PvE game. The whole trading concept is wild as well. Like, um, forcing people to have to interact with people to get items you need, as opposed to just having a system like what WoW does with the marketplace and whatever. It invites
Which is crazy
unnecessary
because
complaint.
WoW is like the quintessential game where you do have to interact with people to play the game, and even they had a trading market. Like, come on, this is supposed to be not an MMO where, like you said,
Exactly.
if you want to log on and just blast monsters, you can do that
Yeah.
without somebody else's help.
Exactly. So, and also like now they're already adding in MTXs, like the door MTX into it that people can go
I
and
know,
trade to.
I know.
Like they're going to make more money out of it. Like market and be like, oh, you don't want to deal with people? Okay, fine. Here's an MTX where it's really cool that you just have them spawn in a room and put a door in it.
And I think that one of their main or worries, I won't say complaints, but worries about the removing the friction is, well, I think they kind of solved it pretty neatly with the gold thing. Like you do need a certain amount of gold to do async trade.
Yeah.
So you need to play the game. You can't just be sitting there playing the stock market or whatever. Like you need to actually go out and kill some monsters. Yeah, I mean, like for an end game build, it's probably a negligible amount of monsters, but like you still have to play the game. You can't just make your entire fortune uh, sitting there flipping without
Being a
touching a monster. So
being a
I
hideout
don't know.
warrior.
And now Path of Exile 2, granted, has a bit of a different community, like there is a lot of overlap, but not 100% overlap between PoE 1, PoE 2 community.
Mm.
We didn't see any major breakdown of society with the introduction of async trade to PoE 2. So I'm hopeful that the same will be the case here,
Yeah,
that it'll be all
exactly.
right.
I think it'll be fine. I think they overreact around, it'll degrade the community and all the rest of it. I think that's like them estimating, they just don't, sometimes they don't want to see change, but the community has spoken and they built the system, so it's not like they couldn't not put it in the game anyway. Um, I'm
No, it
assuming
would have been insane. Once they did it for PoE 2, it would have been insane not to bring it to PoE 1. So,
exactly that would have been like uprisings in the street sort of stuff.
yeah.
Um,
Yep.
Bloodline Ascendancies. Which one are you looking forward to the most?
Well, hard to know because we've only seen the three of them so far,
Yeah,
right? And so far they've looked interesting and potentially great for the right build, but it's not like of the ones we've seen so far that every build out there is like, oh my God, I must take one of these. Maybe that'll be the case when we've seen all 10, that everybody will eventually say, I'm going to want at least one of those. My guess is that for thematic reasons, I'm probably likely to be most interested in Cyrus, Olroth, all something like that. Depends, right? Like we don't know exactly what they're going to do yet. But what I just like in general about this is this is permanent, right? Like this is not a league mechanic. And I saw people thinking that it was in the Twitch chat when they introduced it, and I was like, no, man, this is for everybody. This is going to standard. This is just part of the game now. And so this solves what you and I have talked about on this podcast several times before: is wouldn't it be cool if they could find a way of wrapping the Freesia Ascendancies into the game somehow?
yep,
And you can see from these nodes, these are clearly a fusion of some Freesia nodes, some PoE2 nodes, and some that look, I think, just totally fresh from nowhere. Although, for all we know, they might be versions of Ascendancy nodes for PoE2 classes that haven't been introduced yet.
yeah.
But I think some of them might be just stuff they make up whole cloth for this game. And it's just a fun way of reintroducing some of the stuff that was really compelling for builds without having to break the game by introducing whole new classes and stuff. So I love the idea.
Well, it also gets rid of like build redundancy or like node redundancy too. Like on the Gladiator, for example, you always end up with like one ascendancy that's like redundant.
That's exactly the example. That's the exact example I would have gone with. Gladiator is number one in that. Chieftain is often up
Yep.
there in like you've got two, maybe three that you really want, and then for some builds you're like, what do I want for my fourth? This you suddenly have a slew of options
Well,
to choose
you're gonna
from.
take the four like ascendancy points to take the defense nodes,
Exactly.
and then you're gonna take the other four ascendancies for whatever offense nodes depending on the build. So like Chieftain's a perfect example of like the absolute most blended level of offense and defense with this setup that allows you to get away with basically anything, and it's in a very tanky part of the tree where you can get a lot of armor, health, regeneration, endurance charges, all the rest of it. So you could basically do anything with it. And to be honest with you, like if I was going to do a Crystal King build, it's going to be Gladiator or it's going to be Chieftain. One of those two. It's going to be something with one of those two, most likely. Most likely Chieftain because of the
Gladiator
overcap.
Gladiator is a great example of one that can easily pick three in the right build. So if you're going to do a bleed build, this has always been the problem ever since the Gladiator rework, with the idea of going back to the classic bleed bow Gladiator from like 3.10 or whenever it was the strongest. Like I've really been enamored by that idea, but you just never had a fourth ascendancy
Hmm.
pick. Like what were you going to do? Or worse, I mean, like depending on how you did it, like I don't know, are you going to do rear guard for the block or what? Like, um, you. So I think Gladiator. Maybe I take it back. They're not the perfect for three. They're the perfect for two. So you take bleed pops, bleed aggravate, and then I don't know, find an ascendancy, one of these bloodlines that does something that you can do with your remaining two.
Yeah, well, there'll probably be one that has bleed. Like inevitably, they'll probably like Atsiri, like makes sense that they do like you do like corrupted blood or something like that based on your bleeds or some. That'd be pretty cool. You get like a whole like ability to proc another whole offensive layer without actually having to run, corrupting cry or something like that.
Champion would be interested in that too. They're the old multi-fizz dot stacking champion stuff. But yeah, just the overall sense that I've got is that this is only a positive. It's not going to confuse new players because you're not even going to get introduced to it until you're like fighting the basic pinnacle bosses. So it's not like you are in mid campaign and you're like, oh my god, there's even more ascendancies. Like it's an optional add on towards the end of progression for players who really like theory crafting, and that's me. This is suddenly a slew of new combinations and options for theory crafting, and it's one of my favorite things about the game. So
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
I'm very up on the Bloodline Ascendancy thing.
Yeah, I am too. I like the idea of being able to just saddle up and make like it really just like the other thing too. Does it mean that if you beat can you have more than one bloodline, or is it one bloodline?
I I got the impression that no, I don't know if I saw it stated explicitly, but I'm pretty sure that you have to pick
One
one.
bloodline.
I
Yeah.
think. I think. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure.
If you get two, that'd be pretty wild. But who knows? I think you're right with one, but if we do get two, that would be or above one. That'd be insane. Anyway, uh, lack of mercenaries.
Yeah. So we're coming off of a league with a ton of player power, or more accurately, power for the player
Yeah,
that's coming from the mercenary. But it's, this has been the concern. A lot of builds could only exist with mercenaries, and then even the ones who could exist without it, like my own Arc Ignite build, existed fine in 3.25, but there's no denying that the mercenaries made it just objectively stronger. Even if all you have them for is a free aura, and they were never just that, but even if that's all you had, that's still a free aura. But with that said, we're getting bloodline ascendancies, which give you more fine-tuned control over how you use your points. So maybe you can be more efficient with your ascendancy points. And we're getting all these
graphs.
breach graphs that we'd started talking about.
Yeah, I think that's where the power comes in, and like the additional skills they've showed off. Like we don't really know how far you can craft them yet.
Yeah,
But in like the additional skills that they showed off that are baked into them, some of the damage modifiers in the hundreds of thousands just in the skill that's attached, which is insane. So like you get a modifier that's 150,000 DPS, and then you multiply that by whatever your other modifiers are on your build. That could be huge
yeah.
nuke damage. Like I feel like they're gonna be nuts.
I assume that they put the base damage as high as they do because you can't support it. It's not PoE2 where skills that get added from any source can suddenly get support gems. I assume that it's standalone skills.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. But there probably is a way. Well, we don't know what all uniques like. I think they said there's 20 new uniques, and there could be some interactions with Breach as well. And that sort of, I guess, takes us into the next part of the conversation around Breach
mhm.
2.0 being a sequel. One of the things that sticks out to me with that is what happens to all the old Breach items.
Yeah, I don't know. I would assume, I would hope that they're going to be just part of the drop pool for this. Now, didn't the patch notes say something about blessings can no longer be used to upgrade uniques? They're now only used on the stones. But does that mean that the individual uniques will drop separately or not at all? I don't know. That'd be a shame. There are some minion builds that really liked the United in Dream, Severed in Sleep
Yep,
kind of Chayula swords.
for the
Um,
envy aura. Um,
and
yep,
Surrender Shield. I don't want to
yep.
lose that.
Surrender's a really good shield too. Like yeah, that and Unitol, the Unitol necklace as well, that gives you an additional gem
Hmm.
socket. Like that's insanely expensive, but there are a lot of builds out there that use that. So that one sort of makes sense that that would still be in the game somewhere. I actually on the Breach 2.0 lore, I really want to know what happened to Unitol as well. By the way, and we come back to we don't know what happened to that Breach Lord at all. There's no lore about it. It just disappeared.
Yeah. And is Chayula a good guy, bad guy, neutral, somewhere in between? Why why is Chayula not part of Zesht? Why is Zesht fused in the first place? Like, we're apparently going to learn something about that because we're going from separate Breach Lords to now in this expansion, we're meeting Zesht from PoE2 for the first time. So are we going to find out like what was the war between the Breach Lords or whatever?
I reckon that Chael is the puppet master and he lost control. That's what
I
I
could see
think.
that. Or she. I've heard Shayla referred to as both he and she, and I don't know whether they're supposed to have a gender or not. But whoever it is, they were the puppet master.
Yeah, exactly. They're probably like some omnipotent being or something like that. They call it the dreamer. So, but I'm interested to see where the lore go. I think that's like of all the things, that's one of the most interesting things about it is like they're really building leagues into the lore now and building out the universe. And I find that to be one of the most like interesting things.
I want more of it. It's been tantalizing where like every time they've introduced more lore, I've always felt like I want even more than that. Like they'll give us a little bit about most recently what Zana's been up to or
Mm.
whatever, and that's just like these little breadcrumbs. I'm like, yes, yes, please tell me more. I would love to get like a narrative, even if I have to talk to NPCs and like do quests and stuff, but like somehow learn what's going on specifically with the Breach Lords and not just get these little oblique hints that we kind of have to infer. So yeah, the more information is better. I love a good story.
Well, it looks like they've sort of animated the monks sort of like thing on the whatever as part of the trailer, and I'd say there's probably some sort of cinematic or something like that, and maybe they're going to start adding that when you do the first initial playthrough of the league content, which to be honest with you is pretty cool. Like that's going down like the Blizzard territory. Like when they put out a new
Yeah.
expansion, there's a big cinematic, and so I'd really like that. I really want them to do that in PoE 2 more as well. Like,
I remember they interviewed about this, and so when I saw that first cinematic for PoE 2, I was like, damn, yeah, like there's obviously some separation in the quality from what Blizzard was doing, but I'm like, this is great, like just in the style of having these cinematics. And then they said in an interview where they were asked, do you foresee doing more of this? I think it was Jonathan kind of like laughed and scratched his head. He's like, yeah, but it's really expensive. Like we shelled out a bunch of money just to get that one couple minute cinematic. I'm like, yeah, that's fair. Like, Blizzard is still a very big company,
oh
whatever
yeah.
else you feel about them.
Yeah, I still want to see more cinematics like that. I
I
like
would
the
I would love to.
I like it where she like just goes with the fire, and it's just like, oh, that's so
Yeah.
sick. Like,
I'll buy the MTX, Jonathan. I swear,
yeah,
please.
I'll
Just
buy if I get more cinematics, I'll buy more MTX. I think that's a fair deal. Like,
yeah.
but no, it is good to see it's being branched out, and like it was an old mechanic too, and obviously like they're most likely going to port a lot of that PoE 2 or PoE Breach 2.0 stuff into PoE 2, and we'll see that as like probably the content that comes up in the December release for 2. For was it we up to point 4? I'm still adamant.
It'll be point .4. Yeah.
I still think delve in December. What like they sort of they hinted at it. They've the Isle of Kin's there.
Copium.
Look,
You're huffing the copium.
I'll huff as much copium as it takes if we get delve in the league. But so that takes us into league starter plans. What's the build that you're looking at this league, Baron?
I have no idea. No, I listen. I'm in a very fortunate position, right? So last league, I felt compelled that I had to league start the Archignite Elementalist
Yeah.
because I had the whole guide out and everything. So I feel fortunate that I've got that as a fallback. I can league start that, but it like I've done it. I've shown people how to do it. Like I think I could rest on that if I wanted to branch out,
Mm.
and I do kind of want to branch out. I don't know what yet. I've had 10 ideas. I want to do something with assassin, or I want to do something with cyclone, or no, I haven't done a juggernaut in ages, or I got a million ideas. As George Carlin said, I got a million great ideas. Trouble is most of them suck. So my arc is the fallback because yes, that build survived. It's going to be fine in the new patch. But yeah, I'd love to do something with melee or cyclone or something. I just haven't settled yet. What about you?
Well, I initially started with like Earth Shatter Zerka, right? And I sort of
Mhm.
foresaw it was really strong, and so I did the league starter setup for it. So like in all else failing, that's my go-to, right? But then I
Mm.
theory crafted live on stream Perforate Jug, and I came out to a very, very big number in damage. And I was like,
Nice.
and defense. And I was like, do I want to play a meta or do I want to play something that is weirder and worse? So right now in stream, that's actually what I'm league testing. And to be honest with you, it's freaking strong. It's consistent and strong all the way through. Like not as good as Earthshatter initially, but I feel like yeah, it's got the power there.
Would you do classic perforate or duality for the stance switching?
Classic perforate's better, I found, because if you're in a boss fight for a prolonged amount of time, then you're going to have to keep switching stance and it's going to become inconsistent.
Hmm.
But with the jug, you can saddle up, go ham on a boss like Maven, and just whack away. And the other big advantage is obviously, like on jug, if you go jug 2, you can crit stack, where Zerka, you've really got to go like 100% on hit. You can't really crit stack, like you're not going to get the opportunity to do that. So if you're doing like,
How does can you help me bridge the gap on that one? I'm not
oh,
making the jump with you. How does Jug help you with crit?
oh, I can't remember the node that has 100% on hit. What's the keystone called? Not unwavering stance.
Oh, resolute
Yeah,
technique.
resolute technique. Yeah. So with the Zerka, you sort of have to compromise. So you have to go flat. You get a lot of flat damage on the ascendancy, right? So you rage stack to get your damage up on Zerkas.
Of course, Jug's got the accuracy. There you go.
Yeah, that's the big difference. So the jug gets the accuracy. Like there is a damage differential in the end game build, right? And throughout, but the compromise is the Zerka always feels quite squishy all the way through. It's just because of how the
Mhm.
ascendancy is built. The jug doesn't. And with the jug, you can stack like max capped accuracy pretty much straight away. It's your first ascendancy point, with, was it not undeniable, whatever it's called. Anyways, you get the accuracy up, so that means you can invest heavily into crit and do massive damage on the jug while maintaining a big
There
tanky
it is.
profile. Whereas with the Zerka, you can't really do that. You have to go flatline damage, and then
That's the part that I was missing. It wasn't that the Jug directly provides crit; it's that they provide accuracy, and the Berserker doesn't have access to that without Forbidden Flesh Flame, so they've got to go resolute technique. All right,
yeah,
I'm with you now.
exactly. And the accuracy gives you huge amounts of speed on the jug as well,
Yes.
early on. So whereas the Zerka relies on rage stack and stuff like that, but it also means you got to ramp it up, and that it works
Mhm.
really well with war cries and stuff like that. Like that's what it's designed for, but not so much designed for the what you can do with the jug with defense. But
Will you be using war cries, auto exert, that kind of thing on the Jug?
no, not at all. Don't need it. Or determination, armor, and big AOE, and just clobbering stuff with mark on hits probably all you use, and then Bob's your uncle, you're done. And there's another thing that came to mind as I was talking to you too. Like General's Cry didn't really get touched. And I think General's Cry would be quite strong this league with the breach graphs as well. Like trigger that sort of trigger setup would be pretty good.
General's Cry had a storied history, and then in more recent days, it's been kind of this adjunct skill that people like. So you got Cyclone Shockwave, but then also General's Cry with like a slam skill hooked up
Mm.
to it. So you're doing damage through two means. I wonder if something with that, or I wonder if it could be its own main thing again, like it used to be. I don't know, but
did
yeah,
did really
I like
well
General's Cry back.
did really well at Blade Flurry. And but the problem with
Yep.
that setup was like you could automate it, but you'd lose a lot out of it. But I think like this league more than any other, we're gonna have access to a lot more power around the graph system and stuff like that. So potentially like that could be a really good build again, and it could be tankier. Um, but not sure. We'll have to see what we get out of the graphs. That's what I'm really keen on. And the
Yeah.
bloodlines.
Yep. The other thing I remembered I was cooking up that I didn't mention was if I were to do something relatively sight unseen with new stuff, or maybe hopefully they'll give us some gem info. Um, I'd be interested in something in the vein of, you remember for a while there was a champion build. I think you could do a necro version of it, but a champion build that did aura stacking, like aura effect stacking with smite, wrath, and the boots, the March of the Legion, and you would give your lightning aura to all your SRS minions, right? And
Oh
and so
yeah.
you got these little lightning warriors running around. Something in that vein with Necro, with the new Living Lightning support,
Yep.
whether you do it with Absolution, maybe, so you're doubling down, because the text of the gem says that you're getting these living lightning when you cast a damaging hitting lightning spell. Well, Absolution also summons its own in addition to being a lightning spell. Something with that, and or phantasms or SRS or something. Just basically the idea of getting like an army of these little bodies running around and giving them boosted up lightning or something like that. I don't know. I've just got that running around in my head. The advantage of doing that, even if you do it sight unseen, is that Necro's got a ton of great fallback options for cheap league starters. Like if you try it and it blows up in your face, it doesn't matter. Go Spectres or go Minion Army or go Soul Rest.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you should be able to do that with Generosity. I think Generosity works with Smite. So,
It does.
yeah.
What you do is you put more duration, Smite, Generosity, and Wrath into your March of the Legion boots,
Yep.
and then you can cast. It's a little clunky if you have to not mind casting Wrath and casting hitting with Smite every like 10 seconds or so. But if you don't mind doing a little bit of that, it was fun.
What
I
about
did
the
that in like Sanctum League, I think.
what about the Arcali's Fang build? Would that be an
What would you do it
interaction?
with?
I don't know. Could be an interaction there. How does living
So
elect
let's
how
see.
does living electricity trigger?
The way all we've got is the text so far, and
Yeah.
not even the really detailed stuff, but it refers to summoning these things when you hit with a lightning spell. I think that's all we've got.
Okay. I don't
Now,
know.
Urkali's Fang is summoning your little raised spiders
Spiders.
on kill. Um, maybe there's, I mean, I'm getting way down the rabbit hole here, but like, it's tough, right? So, like, how do you take a minion and make the chaos stuff work? Because, like, I think raised spiders is often done as a poison build, right?
Mm.
Like an
Yeah.
occultist,
Yep.
uh, something. So, how do you make the chaos work with the lightning from living lightning?
You
Because you
can't
can't give your minions like Voltaxic Rift or yeah,
you can't give them cast on crit either, can you?
no.
No.
Eh, just fun stuff. This is the stuff I like. Even if it doesn't pan out, I like thinking about it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a combination that could work. Moral of the story, I think there's going to be a total meta shift in the league starters too. So, um, I don't think like in PoE 2, you're not going to see as many lightning arrow players into the game. But with those tornado skills, there's definitely going to be. I reckon Wind Ripper will come back hard. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Also, I'll call out here, and this sort of transitions us into the topic of overall direction of the game, but just like, it only occurred to me on second viewing of the reveal stream, but I had said a couple weeks ago, I was like, God help them if they try to introduce the PoE2 nonsense of having orbs on the ground that I have to go pick up
they did it.
from those infusions. And then they friggin' did it. And it didn't even register with me because it's only for a few skills,
Yeah.
but those, they did it. And I know that I don't have to play with them and I won't, but like, don't you get the idea, GGG, that we're interested in having that all over the place?
I will not play that BS in Path of Exile 1. I'm not going to play it in PoE 2, and I'm not going to play it in PoE 1. That's why I play Warrior. Like,
So I will. Luckily, PoE 1 is a diverse enough game that I could use one of those skills and use clever little trickery to get around it. So, like, what if you the one of them is like a bow skill that leaves these things around. Well, what if you link it up with the Asenath's Mark, Blink of Wintry Blast? So, like, yes, you fire these dots in front of you, but then by default, your helmet causes you to teleport into the middle of wherever you are aiming. So it's like an auto trigger. I don't have to worry about walking over them. Like the build itself just automatically does it. That's the only circumstance where I'd want to do something like that, where I can automate it.
yeah,
Let me turn my brain off, Grinding Gear Games.
I'm never gonna use that setup. I'm never gonna use any setup they use. I'm like, no. In just even if it gave me a buff and it didn't cost me anything to do it, I still wouldn't use
Yep.
it in defiance. I it's like no, no GG.
No.
Actually, do you think Locust Mines would be able to trigger the new Kinetic Blast one skills? I think they would.
Maybe. I can't remember if we saw anything about them not being.
Mindful.
Yeah, I don't think we saw anything about whether. Oh, Thunderstorm cannot be used by Totem's Traps mines. Conflagration has no such restriction, but those are the bows. Now,
That's bow.
Kinetic Fusillade, the one that's like the PoE2 skill, Ember Fusillade, the one that builds up around you and then fires. Ember Fusillade is a wand skill, cannot be used with traps or mines. Kinetic Rain cannot be used with traps or mines. Oh, that's right. That's right. The whole point of Kinetic Rain of Impact is it is the one, it's a transfigured one, and the main difference is that it can be used with traps or mines. I assume that means it gets lower base damage or something like that. We haven't seen the numbers, but the text of the two gems, Kinetic Rain and Kinetic Rain of Impact, is otherwise identical, except that the classic gem has the restriction on no traps and mines. So I figure lower damage for the transfigured one. You could do something with that.
I think conflagration totems is going to be a thing.
I was thinking about conflagration with, so there's this interesting, somebody pointed out that conflagration is it's a fire dot that doesn't fit into other categories. Like, it's not burning ground, it's not an ignite, so it can stack with other fire dots in the same way that like cold dot builds can stack multiple sources of cold dot and they'll all be active at the same time. There are some non-poison chaos dot builds that you can have multiple chaos dot debuffs and stack multiple at the same time. And the physical ones, like we talked about in this, I think is an attempt to do it with fire as well, that you can get conflagration going at the same time as like a flame or a fire trap burning ground, which you could get going at the same time as like a blast rain of Trothus. Is that the one that leaves a burning ground debuff? And I think you could add up 2 or 3 of these things together. Like maybe you do some kind of monoforged arrow support, something like that. I don't know if the numbers work out, but I think the idea is they want you to kind of stack it with other stuff.
I would set it the same as Flamewood totems. Basically, use it very similarly to Flamewood totems from a few leagues ago. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Who knows? Like, you could probably use it with was it not Black Flame? The gloves that drop off the mini pinnacle boss. I'm forgetting that. Black Zenith.
Oh.
Possibly you could use it on Black Zenith.
So socketed projectiles, more damage with hits, adds a big cooldown, but it also adds projectiles fire in a circle, less duration. So what are you thinking? Like as a nuke option, like every 4 or 5 seconds you get to drop a
pretty much, yeah. You drop a new totem, and the way that like Flamewood would work, you could potentially use it similar to Flamewood totems. Then basically you'd run it on vitality totems. I mean, you wouldn't be able to do that. You'd have to do it ballista totems. So every time you drop a ballista totem, it would then send out a huge nuke wave of conflagration projectiles. And you would get like,
with the advantage, of course, being that the damage is over time anyway, so you don't even need to trigger it all that often.
Yeah, exactly. That could potentially work. I don't know though. That because you can only 4 link it on that basis, but you get all those extra projectile stats and things like that. And you can run it on Elementalist. You could even arguably play it the same as EA Ballista totems.
Those are such a unique setup. The business of having to achieve the exact right firing rate to get 21 arrows stuck in. I wish that would come back. I kind of like that playstyle.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, this whole podcast has been an exercise in what I think is going to be the theme of the league. This is going to be theory crafting league. Yeah. Like everybody and their brothers is going to be making up crazy stuff because of all the new combinations, and I love it.
Once we find out what those bloodlines are, then yeah, the stuff that's going to come out of that is going to be like there's going to be some game breaking stuff that's going to come out of it, and it's going to be absolutely mental. And like I'm going to be sitting there going, yes, I know what all the Crystal King nodes are. There's going to probably be a video, and it's going to be like, all right, this is what we're doing. By force of will, we will make this build work because I just want to use it because it's cool. The rule of cool comes into play at every avenue here. But yeah, I think that that gets us through pretty much the bulk of what we were going to talk about on this podcast.
Yeah. Well, I think closing note that I meant to get to at some point, and it didn't really fit in. I guess it fits in with overall direction of the game. Is the nerf to end game like map mod effect stuff, and how they're trying to shift the Atlas tree away from all map mod effect and do more stuff like adding magic monsters, adding rare monsters. They said in the interview that they want to get even further away from that and get more towards like niche, like you choose how you buff your your maps instead of this all-purpose, turn everything into the same map mod effect. I like this, honestly. Like, I've never been the one who's enjoyed the, like, multi-mirror farming, like 80 div an hour, T17, 4000 map mod effect, like needs a lightning arrow dead eye, and also you're going to fall over dead. Like, that's never been super my style. And so I know that for some people it'll be disappointing that some of the top end quant farming is, we're kind of getting away from that a little bit and evening the playing field. But I think that just makes it nice for other farming styles, like going to Delve or Heist or Simulacrum or
Blight.
whatever, where you feel like you can Blight, you can compete.
We've actually
So
forgot to talk about the fact that you got a big buff to your favorite, or big QOL to your favorite mechanic, which is Blight.
I always used the chess mastery anyways. I had hoped that when we got that QOL node, I hoped that meant that they were doing more of that kind of chest opening thing so that we could get rid of the mastery. I always just spec into the mastery and just run around with like Frostblink or whatever and just open up everything. But yeah, this way melee builds don't have to feel quite as bad doing Blight stuff. So
You're like, I'll take that win.
yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it. It's good.
All right. With that, I think we've probably been going for like an hour and a half, 2 hours between there anyway.
A little over an hour, I think, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, good luck to everyone in their league start next week. And Baron and I we'll try and do, when's their next pod? When do you think we do a next podcast? A few weeks time after league start?
Yeah, a couple weeks. We'll talk. Yeah, hopefully within a couple weeks. Maybe do a little post-mortem on how league start went, something like that.
Yep. I'm happy with that. And anyway, for everyone else, make sure you like and sub to Baron's channel, my channel. Everything will be linked in the description below. And yeah, good luck with everything. And we'll see you then.